Pat J. Cameron Show. And hello to all of you watching on YouTube as well. Warchant TV on YouTube and the Heisen League Law Firm chat. Appreciate that. Yeah, we had a weird day yesterday. We did the show. We pre-recorded the show. You'll hear it today. Unfortunately, I'm a bit under the weather here. But we're gonna soldier through. That's not why I bring it up. But because I was a bit under the weather yesterday, to a greater extent, we recorded in the morning and had fresh content for you. And some of you saw it. Some of you did. If you were on Warchant TV, you did. But if you were listening on the radio, you heard dead air. And our tower was struck by lightning. A tree fell on it as well. It was a cataclysmic day for all of that. And they worked late into the evening, somewhere around midnight last night. They finally fixed what we needed in terms of, I won't get into the details, but we were able to get that fixed around midnight. And so if you missed yesterday's show, my interview with Justin Cryer was there as well. And that was a fun conversation, Tom. I know we're going to post that on YouTube today as well. But I like talking to that young man. He seems focused, centered, ready to go. I like how competitive he is, and that's a position that we need some people to step up at linebacker. So go back and listen to that. And I thought the show itself was fun as well. Matt Millar joined us, and we did our annual pre-draft foreign-born players, one of which went number 2 overall, 2 French guys right off the bat. So his fallback now of just picking people from France is kind of the way to go.
Yeah, maybe we should change the pronunciation of his last name to like Mua, because he guesses French and he hits on both France guesses. So 3 for him in back-to-back years. That we would call, I believe, a hot streak in the NBA name game.
It's the best he's ever done. He's on a run, but he's kind of fixed the game now. I'm a little worried that he's figured it out. He falls back on a few, now he didn't, remember the one year there were like 3 guys from Latvia? And he could have fallen back on Latvia one year.
Latvia and Lithuania had a really good run there. They did. But this year was France and Serbia that seemed to carry the way. He's got to remember next year that Australia is always in play. Like, he seemed surprised yesterday that Australians send players to the NBA. Well, he shouldn't be. And also, if you hear a Spanish name, guess Spain always. They have been... Always. For what you could say when we send professionals over there in our best, they have been the chief competition as a nation for the United States in the Olympics has been Spain. So that would be the one to always keep an eye out for too.
One of the cool things I remember many years ago, and when you do this, as long as I've done it, you can kind of circle back and remember conversations that you had a long time ago. And now the realization of whatever that was, that thing, is you're reminded of the genesis of this idea. Australia, and this is just interesting as a sports fan, really we're ahead of the game when it came to academies, giant academies. Like we know internationally, soccer is a big one for this, right? I mean, it's like why the United States, one of the many reasons the United States will always be behind when it comes to soccer. But you got kids that get pulled out of like elementary school to go and be, for lack of a better term, fostered and bred towards being internationally great soccer players, right? That goes on all over Europe. Well, in Australia, they have these huge camps where they help identify whatever it is your acumen, both mentally and physically, is what you would be geared towards. And a long time ago, they figured out some things about, at an early age, if you see the floor a certain way, if you view mathematics a certain way, and you're also going to be tall, or at least predictive measures say you're going to be tall, we're going to steer you over here, and we're going to churn out some top-tier international talent in basketball. So, it is a fallback. But remember when we were having that conversation many, many moons ago? It might have been with Millar, actually. Could have been T. Lizzie. I can't remember if I had it with you or with him, but I remember when they started doing all that.
Maybe we should start having lines of delineation for the eras of the producers of the JCS over the years. You could say post Millar, or you could say pre-T. Lizzie, just to designate the eras of the show. We also have an AM FM dial delineation point as well. So that also is nice and clean. It's AM dial, just as a quick aside, it's still a thing up here. It's a very big thing up here to get your live sports, but it's long gone in Tallahassee.
I got to tell you that is that maybe one of the last areas where that would be the case. I'm sure maybe Chicago, I know New York, maybe Boston. I'd have to go to figure that out, but everything else has switched to FM, and the AM has gone the way of the dodo in most places, which makes me sad because I obviously got my start in good old-fashioned AM radio. I don't remember the last time I flipped over to AM just to even see, like, is there something there?
Yeah, so there is still functionality in my car to do that, which I appreciate because that's the baseball's on CBS 880 here. But I remember, and I don't know how they do this in the winters here because it gets dark at 4 o'clock, but you had to power down. And I can recall when you used to warn listeners on 1270 that, hey, we're about to power down. So if you want to catch probables, make sure to go to our website. So in a way, it's almost like that's what we do now. If we play music for probables, we redirect people, but that would take about 10 full seconds for the powering to clear, and it would be just a bunch of static for 10 seconds on the dial as you were finishing up.
I'm still giddy, by the way, from our conversation about recruiting the other day. And I'm still, I'm kind of locked in now because of the percentage of blue chippers that Florida State's in on. And you got me going down a road where I started looking it up. I started looking up the last time we were in on this many 4- and 5-star players that we, A, were in good standing with and had a legitimate shot to bring in. And, of course, I said the other day when we were talking about this with the 19 or whatever it was, 19 or 20 people that were on campus this past weekend, how great it was to see the offensive and defensive linemen. Yes, you got to commit from a big-time defensive lineman, a huge edge guy as well. And then, obviously, we know the situation we're in right now with all these offensive linemen that are really, really high-profile and well thought of. And I started thinking, man, that is just further evidence not only of the change in status that Florida State finds themselves being part of now, where they would be part of the larger group that the best players in these recruiting class rankings would be looking at now. It's like, we logically, intellectually, we know winning games changes the way you're viewed. And we know that we've talked about this as the next big step for Mike and his staff to make sure they can accrue especially the offensive linemen that are 5-star caliber kids, because they're harder and harder to come by in the portal. Really, when you bring linemen in from the portal, you may get a bump, you may get an upgrade. Dylan Gibbons was that upgrade for us, for example, but you're not seeing too many 5-star tackles, for example, just switching schools and stuff. So you needed to bring those in through the high school ranks. And then when I did that, and I won't bore you with a bunch of recruiting talk, but as I did it, I really realized that we are in not for the program, but for Mike and his staff, we're in another realm. We're in rarefied air for this group now. If they end up getting a good bit, I mean, they don't have, what do they have, 6 right now total commits right now? That's far fewer than what other people have, but they are on the radar for so many more. So the quality is going to be immense. And buddy, that changes the dynamic completely of the way that the program is being built. And it's already moving in the right direction. We just had to do it a different way.
Yeah, and I think, this is nobody wants to hear about a lag effect or a delay effect. I know anytime you bring up FEI, I get mad because there's a lag effect on previous seasons when we were bad at football. And so I don't think we're getting enough credit for the now. But this was always going to take time when Mike Norvell started in a COVID era and he couldn't form the relationships and prove what the program, he had to survive first, which is a conversation we had 2 years ago. He had to make it through so that he was not, as you put, potentially a dead man walking and on a hot seat. He survived that, and he went from surviving to thriving, and he got from survival to thriving via the portal. But that is the proof that the kids always were looking for 2 and 3 years ago in the high school ranks. So thankfully, the portal has been an exceptional bridge. But some of this, I think, is because we're not a great recruiting staff. I'm not going to run from that fact. Compared to the elite staffs in the country or the operations in the country, we leave something to be desired. But another huge part of it was the lag effect of the proof of concept and, clearing all these negative hurdles, many of which were outside of our control. We're outside of his control. And we're finally getting to that place where reputation, like Solomon Thomas in his exit interview on Sunday, said to the guys that, hey, I've seen what he's done with the offensive linemen he's had and what he's developed with the players he's had. It's basically Solomon trying to put it kindly. He hasn't had players like me, and look at what they've done. Wait till he gets a player like me. And you can tell that must be the pitch that they're making, and it's starting to land. All you need is a couple of those kids to say yes, and then it becomes a factory. Much like defensive back has changed, you could see offensive line change that way. The difficult part in the middle was we did have a class of really high-rated players, and most of them didn't hit. And that's one middle point that's been difficult. Jalen Early might mature up and become one of those rotational pieces this year. We're still waiting on Armella, and basically all the other dudes are gone. So that was one of the tough parts of this last 5 years.
Yeah, sometimes you can have a ranking that masks the underlying problems, like why you were able to get some of those guys, some of the higher rated. Like if your program isn't operating, as I like to say, at peak efficiency, if you haven't played well, go back to the beginning of the lost decade with Bowden. All right. So they were still bringing in a few big time 5-star players. It turns out that as the ship was sinking and they weren't getting the most out of what they had, most of the 5-star kids kind of recognized that. And the ones that people decided were too much trouble, too big a headache, remained available. And Florida State was still a name because of all that had come before it. So then, I hate to pick on people, but like a Fred Rouse is a 5-star player. Well, we know what happened there and why he was available. And there were others like that. So you were still able to kind of fake it for a while, where in fact you were getting guys that weren't likely to pan out. I don't want to say they weren't talented. They just weren't likely to pan out. And I feel like when you're rebuilding and you're struggling to get back on your feet and have a winning season, yeah, there's some kids that are interested in the new blood that has taken over a program, and maybe they buy into a pitch. Maybe you get 1 or 2 kids like that. But a lot of the kids that decide to end up jumping on board with you before you've had proof of concept, as you just said, are guys that maybe weren't in that upper batch of those can't miss prospects. They were kids that were well thought of because of either their body type, size, talent, domination in high school, but they were kind of found out by those that could be more discerning. So those that could say, you know what, I'm not real sure about this kid, and I don't think we need him. We're loaded. If he wants to go to Florida State, let him go to Florida State. And you got a few kids like that just didn't pan out. And I think that happens sometimes. Now I think, what you end up having is that when you make something, despite not having a huge number of blue chip players say yes, and then you win a bunch of games, not like a little bit, you win a bunch of games. Now all of a sudden those guys that are the creme de la creme say, well, good God, man, honestly, I don't know that there's anything more impressive than what I've seen going on in Tallahassee right now, because they didn't have a ton of talent. And they went out and made it happen. They found a way. They got back to where they won 10 games, then they won 13. They just keep on ascending. And now they're churning guys to the league. And that's the final piece to the puzzle, where even if you're not a great recruiting staff, you'll fall into it. Now, where that changes is when you're trying to sustain elite level national championship excellence year over year. We're still fighting to get to that place where that's what we are. Last year's the first year where you could say, yeah, they've entered the conversation. They're back amongst the nation's best. Arguing about if they were the best team in the country or not isn't what I'm talking about. Arguing that they belong in the conversation of playoff-bound teams going into what is now a 12-team playoff is also not really in question. Florida State has done that. Now they have to take another big step forward, because you're going to be competing to win the national title again. And really, we talk about the war of attrition, how many games you're going to have to win now. You're going to have a ton of stockpiled talent, including some kids that maybe you wouldn't want to have to rely on, but better be skilled. And this is where those recruiting class rankings and the number of blue chip players that you're bringing in, and that's what we were talking about the other day and why I went and looked and started getting excited. They've got to be bountiful. They've got to be what you see. I mean, like when we see that class ranking, I know we don't sit around and go, well, class rankings are the be all end all, but we also know that more often than not, if you sign the number 1 class in the country or the number 2 or 3 class in the country, there are going to be a number of really talented players that emerge and dominate for you as the years go by. And the sooner you can stockpile those, the better off you are. So if you're lacking in that area, you better win a bunch of games. You better figure out how to get to that place. They have, and now the blue chip players are here. They're excited to see what Florida State's pitch is. They're excited to see what Mike Norvell is all about. And your top recruiter always has to be your head coach. Your head coach has to be the man. At the end of the day, that's the guy. I understand we have position groups and players and coaches that are responsible for recruiting certain players, and they take the lead on a lot of guys. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, the dynamic nature of your coach, or maybe in the modern era, perhaps the NIL, admittedly, they've got to be amongst the very best for you to get those guys, period. Now, there's always going to be some guys that, you don't get. We understand that. But you better be able to go ahead. And that's where I think Florida State's positioned well, because there hasn't been a single recruit, even those that didn't say yes to Florida State in recent memory, that didn't have high praise for Mike Norvell. And we know from being around Mike, Tom, on a regular basis, the guy lives it. He's immersed in it, loves it, high energy, focus, believes in what he says what he believes. I think kids will always relate to that.
Always yelling. You walk over to the athletic facility, hi, hello, yelling at 12. Always yelling, running into the practice facility. The kids talk about that when they're visiting. He is loud. I forget who it was this Sunday. I made the graphic for it, and I should remember. But he said, this guy's got freaking energy, man. Got to bottle it up, because he's unlike anybody I've ever dealt with the energy that he brings to the table. It's just, from the offensive line perspective, Darius Washington is a really, really important piece to the future. I'm not talking about this season. I'm talking about the future, because to me, he is potentially very draftable. I don't know that he'll play tackle at the NFL level, but we've seen he can play all 5 positions. And this might be the most draftable offensive lineman you've had in some time. And it would be important for him to have a good season and to be drafted, so you can show that here is, for lack of a better term, he's more of a homegrown, home-developed talent at Florida State, even though I think Darius goes back a coaching staff, a generation. But, I mean, Rob Scott's injury woes are going to, let's just say he plays a full season and he's good. You worry about the medical, even still, at the combine for his pro prospects. Maurice Smith, the size would be a barrier for him to make it to the
injury history. Level. Yeah, he's been banged up his whole career.
Correct. Like, this is one of those deals where if NIL removed eligibility, let's just have Mo for another 5 years. But then maybe one of the 2 interior guys that are transfers. Like, you need Darius, I think, to lead the way there in terms of draftability, so that you can pitch that now to the next wave of recruits and say, look, we got this guy paid, and we're about to get a whole lot more of you paid. Lucas Simmons is projecting to be X, Andre Otto, Y, and Jalen Early. You can see where the messaging can change, and that can aid you immeasurably on the recruiting trail. But the hard discussion to have, and I think the one that Mike Norvell had with the administration, is we're not good enough at recruiting. And that's why he wanted more infrastructure to make sure that Florida State would be better at recruiting. I think that was the crux of his contract extension and some of the yeses he wanted to get when leveraging the Alabama situation. We're not elite at recruiting. It's a good recruiting staff. But as you point out an awful lot, Florida State isn't here to be a B or a B+. Florida State is here to be an A and an A+. And so what's the bridge? Is it infrastructure? Is it the staff members? Is it we got to get Darius Washington and other guys on the O-line drafted so that we can, say, you're going to make a lot of money when you leave here? Maybe it's a combination of all of those things that gets us to the place that we want to go.
I think at the end of the day, you keep winning games. Obviously, you put yourself in a position to have good class after good class, but you want to have elite class after elite class. And I bet probably down the line, there's going to have to be a move or two made on the staff. And I believe that's probably going to have to happen.
Sure. And my point is, again, this year, Michael was pushing for this a couple of weeks ago, Michael Langston, before we got an unexpected yes from C.J. Wiley, before Kevin Wynn committed to Florida State, where he's saying, man, the wave is coming, and I expect them to be a top 10 class. And there's one part of me that says, okay, another year of incremental growth. Good job. And then there's this other guy that floats around who grew up even when we were bad in the last decade, and for stretches of Jimbo's time, it didn't pan out. And you're like, top 10? Since when is top 10 acceptable? You know, like there is that other part of it. Now, the portal changes how we discuss the whole part of what happened.
Yeah,
and we were past the portal. We're the best. We're one of the best, if not the best, at the portal.
Yeah.
But I can understand if there's a fan out there who's like, really? So we're shooting for number 9 this year?
No, and that's the point I'm making, because I bring up where I allow for the nuance in the discussion to exist. Admittedly, it's tough to sell 5-star blue chip players who just 2 years ago were watching you not be very good at football. And now all of a sudden, obviously you are, and you've entered the conversation. So I get that we have to kind of one by one go through these players that you either didn't win a battle for or did or lost or how. Yeah, there's a different answer each time. Sometimes it is that the guy who was recruiting him failed. Sometimes it's that he didn't have much of a chance. Sometimes it's that, maybe you got out-recruited by a staff that's a little bit better at it than you are. And we go through all these machinations, but what we're doing now is monitoring, is this upwardly mobile? And the answer is unequivocally, it is definitely upwardly mobile. And this will be his best class yet. It has a chance to be very, very good. Like top 5 good. That's the neighborhood you want to live in. And that's probably the neighborhood you have to live in if you're going to compete annually to make a deep run in the playoff and win some national championships. Jeff Cameron, Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Did you know that some cars are more prone to auto glass damage than others?
I did not know that.
Yeah, a Jeep windshield is flat, making it very prone to damage. Nissan Rogues are popular. Toyotas, Subarus are always in my shop because they get damaged frequently and they require recalibration.
So you guys see a lot of SUVs.
Yeah, I guess the angle of the glass has a lot to do with it.
But it's not like you can avoid a rock no matter what you're driving.
Exactly. So just go to SeminoleAutoglass.com and let us take care of everything for you.
So how often do you see a DeLorean?
From time to time.
Oh.
Better call Seminole.
Give your business a facelift with a modern, consistent, creative brand overhaul from Curiosity Marketing Group. These days, it's not enough for your business just to have a standard website or a Google listing to reach your customers. Your business needs to stand out with eye-popping branding, modern web development, and strong marketing. And it takes a team to pull it all together. Words and websites matter. At Curiosity, we make the most of yours. Find out more at curiositymg.com.
I used to fight almost on a daily basis working on my business website. I'm a pretty smart guy, but I could never get it to function the way I needed it to, and I was losing customers because of it. That's when I called Curiosity Marketing. They listened, they understood, we collaborated, and in the end, they delivered beyond my highest expectations. Now, I can barely keep up with the work. They say the future belongs to the curious, and now I'm excited about the future of my business.
Find out more at curiositymg.com.
Tallahassee's 30-year-old funny paper and American Legion Post 13 have joined forces to become Major Morale. The new magazine has 4 more pages of post activities and military information that you probably never knew. But don't worry, it's still as politically correct and newsworthy as always. Okay, it's the same funny stuff, but it's still only available at the sponsors' locations like ABC Flooring, Tallahassee Automobile Museum, Krispy Kreme, or Keith Lawson Services, providing professional services and maintenance for your home's most critical systems for over 39 years. If you need air conditioning, heating, or plumbing repairs, you will receive an upfront written quote, and the job will be done on time by the area's most advanced, highly trained professionals. Keith Lawson Services, Florida license CMC 125456 and CFC 1429197.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the 3rd time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? A man age 50 non-tobacco user can obtain $500,000 of coverage for as little as $110 per month. Level rate for 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rate for 20 years. If you're a smoker, there are great rates available for you as well. Call Term Busters for a quote. 1-800-908-7636. You're probably paying more than you should. Call 1-800-908-7636. Remember, call Term Busters. 1-800-908-7636. Sample rate for preferred non-tobacco rate class. Exam required to qualify.
Science-backed, technology tracked, and coach-led. Hey, Jeff Cameron here. You've heard me rave about the benefits of Orange Theory Fitness and the proven track record of science-backed interval training. Well, now Orange Theory Fitness has done it again, adding more ways for you to improve your health and look your best. In addition to the always great standard workouts, OTF has added Tread 50 and Strength 50 for those in the mood to just lift for an afternoon or attack those cardio goals for the day. Take the guesswork out of exercise. Make sure you're getting the most out of each and every workout. Orange Theory Fitness, location Midtown Tallahassee and Village Square Boulevard.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com. Now, back to Jeff on Real Talk 93.3.
I got a question for you, Tom. I should have brought it up the other day, but I didn't think about it until later on. And then also a mutual friend of ours who punted at some point at Florida State asked this question to me via text. And he said, when we were talking about the new, basically what is the new signing day, we were going through the history of signing day, what it used to be, when it mattered, how we'd get excited about February, remember? And then you were saying now it's like, what'd you say? It was 3 days after the end of the season, after the rivalry games?
Yeah, so it's going to be the Wednesday after we play Florida this year.
Right.
Wednesday, that period of 48 hours. Yeah.
That's what I thought. All right. Well, that's absurd. Think about this. If you're Florida, let's use them as an example because they're a really good example, and you lose that game to Florida State, all right, and you've had a ass season, which they've got a lot of ass seasons lately, but they're on the cusp of maybe even an even bigger ass season. It's like Roseanne Barr ass type of season, just giant, right? All right. So you're having that kind of a year. If you know when you play, say, Georgia in November and you get blown out by Georgia and you think, well, we're going to fire Billy Napier at the end of this year. Do you wait? Do you wait to fire him at the end of the year when you lose your rivalry game and now 3 days later this class that you've worked hard to sign is going to be left out in the wind? That coach is fired. You got to bring somebody in. And then let's say you've even had some back alley deal where you've agreed with the Texas coach to take over the job, because you're not hiring an assistant from somewhere if you're Florida, right? You're going to go get a name. So now you go say you get that guy. What's he supposed to do? How's he going to – was he going to come in within 48 hours and salvage that class somehow? You're going to lose everything. You're just going to start fresh totally. When would you let him go? When would you fire his ass? Like, what if they start out the season and lose to, oh man, see, this gets really complicated. It's why you don't want to suck. But there's always a lot of reasons. But here's another one. Let's say you lose to Miami at home in the Swamp, the first game of the year. And you're already, we're staring at all kinds of losses on that schedule, well documented. And you lose 5, 6 more games easily. He's a dead man walking and you know it. You can't go out and get another coach. I don't know what you do. Like, if you're better off, if you fire a guy early, you could almost say to those recruits, some of the bigger names that wanted to come there, hey, don't worry, we've got a big name. We're going to bring him in. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. You're going to let him before you do anything rash, make sure you see what we're going to do at the end of this year. We can't bring him in right now. He's currently coaching somebody else, but I promise you, we got a big name and he's coming. And you're going to want to talk with him before you make any what are you going to do? You have an assistant coach out here coaching the rest of the way, trying to put together a class? This will be interesting to see if it changes the math.
Oh, I would think the firing part of the equation has to come early. And what that means is, we've seen reports, Texas A&M just went through it with their baseball coach. You're not even done yet with your season, and there are wide reports that you're taking another gig, and they're in the College World Series. We've seen that in bowl game scenarios, or certainly we know of our own example with a coordinator who took a head coaching job before we played Oklahoma for a national championship. You're going to see those storylines of, Mark Richt takes the Georgia job or will be the next head coach at Georgia. before Thanksgiving. Like you're going to have to. It is in the university's best interest if they're firing a coach to leak that information so that they can recruit off of the oops, we didn't mean for that to get out there in the final few days before the early signing period. What would happen, I suppose, is maybe a slew of those kids that are interested in Florida would take their decision to February. But the other staffs are going to be working like hell to close the deal there. But it is condensed because let's say Florida's in that scenario and Florida State's got an ACC championship to play for. It's a dead period anyway, but come on, your attention is diverted to making sure the future of your roster is going to be okay during a game week.
Yeah, I find it fascinating because I don't know, there are so many things that factor into that. It's kind of real. I get it. It's big money and it's a different world now, but you think about a guy that if you're the school that is firing their guy. So Napier does lose to Georgia, and I'm just giving you an example, has already lost to Miami and loses some. I have to pull up their schedule. We know the last 5 are really difficult. And the writing's on the wall, and you've decided you're going to move on. And now you're going to reach out to a big-name coach at a school because, again, you've learned your lesson. You're like, man, didn't work out with Sunbelt Billy. We got to get a big name in here. And would you want a guy that is in the middle of coaching a season for a team and he's backstabbing them in week 5? You're lying to these kids every day?
Here's the deal. In the old way, that's a red flag. In the new way, it's necessary. In the new way of doing things. So somebody's going to do it. Somebody's absolutely going to do it. And they're going to be, they couldn't be in the running for the playoff though. So your candidate pool, you wouldn't trade a playoff season or run at a playoff. I don't know. Again,
it's interesting to think about, man. It's always been shady, but this sounds like it's going to get even shadier. I'm picturing, we know a particular super agent is going to be fielding all kinds of back alley calls and room and a deal, deals will be brokered and all of that. And there could be a guy trying to coach his ass off at his existing spot. Like you just used the baseball example. They were in the final series. They were playing for the national title and he was working out a deal to leave.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
So, according to Thamel, CBS Sports, there was a proposal there to add a summer signing period. A third one. It wasn't going to be in replacement of December. It would be in addition to the December signing period. But the coaches wanted it to be in June or whoever was pitching this idea, which is, that's a little early. Ideally, I do think late July, early August would be a nice spot for that to happen. July right now is a dead period. So you'd allow kids a little bit of space. They can make a call before their senior seasons begin. And then if a head coach changes or a position coach changes, maybe you can get out of it. But the easiest path to all of this is to just move the stupid thing back to where it originally was. The transfer portal created too many things to happen in December, and the playoff is added to it. Just move it back to February. And you know what? It would be what it once was. A day where people take off of their jobs because it would be the most covered thing on that part of the calendar. There's nothing happening on the first Wednesday of February.
The other part to this whole conversation about how convoluted it gets and somebody's backstabbing somebody, a couple of things. First of all, I use Florida as an example because we all think they're going to have another poor season just as they did a year ago. But I'm not necessarily of the opinion. They are a beleaguered bunch right now. They you know where they're at? They're at where we would be if Mike hadn't worked out. Because remember, when you fire somebody, even if it's for a very good reason, starting over is heavy lifting. It's arduous, it's tough. You get set back. Players don't want to deal with that kind of upheaval. Parents of players don't want to deal with that kind of upheaval. Change is difficult. And so you fire a guy, and even if it was necessary, if it's on the heels of somebody else having been fired in relatively short period of time, now you're reeling. Now you're up against the ropes. And now you've hired a third guy in a very short period of time. If that guy doesn't work out, you run the risk of being obsolete for another 7 years. Like, how many times are you going to start over and keep hitting reset and expect to compete against the best of the best, especially any of those programs that have had real stability? So if you're recruiting in the Southeast like we are, we already have a disadvantage of being in this godforsaken sorry league. But, you're running up against Kirby right now, and that is the picture of stability at Georgia. They are the standard. And forever, obviously, that was Alabama. And, you're going to have to keep starting over and deal with that. Nobody wants to do that. That's a long-winded way of me saying I think it's going to take a lot for Florida to fire him. I think he may have a losing season and not get fired. Those I don't think they want to start over.
I believe they've already set the 2025 schedule, which is you have the same conference opponents, it's just you switch venues. So I don't think he's getting a break on the schedule the next year. It's not like he gets a couple more Vandy's and he trades out in Alabama. Like, whatever their schedule is this year, the SEC, at least for now, unless maybe they add a couple of teams, is saying that it's home and away splits. So you think it's bad this year? It's going to be equally as difficult for him next.
Well, I mean, and again, would you bring in somebody else? Is he going to magically wave a wand with that schedule in year one and make it all better? I don't think so, buddy.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, the problem with all of this, the underlying problem is, you remember when early enrollees became in vogue. I'm starting to get old enough now. This is 10, 12 years ago. I remember when Florida State and Jimbo Fisher had a lot of early enrollees. This kid will be on campus. So they would make these announcements earlier in the calendar because you don't get the February payoff. You don't get to play with the hats. You don't get to play with them in February. It's not your day anymore because you're on campus getting ready for spring practice. And I think that's part and parcel to why we have a December signing day, so these kids can make that decision, because most of them early enrollee anyway these days. They get their academics in order so they can get the jump on their college career with an extra spring camp. So, there's no easy solution to it, but the reason that it's going to be so hectic, you're going to go Florida State versus Florida, signing day. Hopefully, in all likelihood, we're in Charlotte. And then the transfer portal is because they didn't want preps and transfers to be on campus at the same time for visits.
I just keep thinking about the powers that be having to make a decision mired in the muck of a terrible season and knowing they need to start over but possibly can't. And what do? We wait, and then we lose this class that we have? Because who are you bringing in that with the next 5 days is going to meet with those people and say, I promise you it's going to be okay? Like that, man. Pretty brutal. I wonder if the coaches just start getting fired mid-year.
Well, if you look at Florida's schedule, there's a place for it. There is a place for it. And it's right after the Georgia game's over. So you got
That's why I brought Georgia up. That's why I brought it up. Like, you lose to Georgia, the writing's on the wall, and you make a decision. But what, an assistant coach now is going to steer this thing through?
He's going to steer you through Austin, Texas, a game against LSU at home, a game against Ole Miss at home, and through Tallahassee. He's going to wear a 4-game interim record is what he's going to do.
And meanwhile, your class has gone to hell, and you can't announce, unless you're going to leak, that you've got a guy who's in the middle of coaching a team who's likely very successful, because you're not hiring a bum.
Correct. Maybe they bring Urban Meyer back, and they play Kentucky on the 19th of October. They play Kentucky, and then they have the bye week before Georgia. Maybe that's their 2-week window to make the change and make the announcement so they can have 6 weeks of earnest recruiting.
It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Your local news now.
An arrest has been made in a Moultrie hit-and-run incident that critically injured a 19-year-old. Sean Russell Fields was arrested on Friday after Georgia State Patrol troopers in the Colquitt County Sheriff's Office identified him as the suspect. On May 14th, Jordan Jones was hit by a truck operated by Fields while riding his moped on Veterans Parkway in Moultrie. Fields did not stop or slow down. He is now facing several charges, and the investigation is ongoing. Now that Leon County has qualified for FEMA assistance, if you haven't applied for aid yet but plan to, call FEMA at 1-800-621-33 5362. So a representative can walk you through the application over the phone and answer any questions that come up as you're filling out the online application. After you apply, an inspector may come to your home to assess the damage. Within 10 days of that inspection, you should receive a determination letter, even if the letter indicates that you've been found ineligible. You may be able to submit additional information that could allow you to receive aid. This is Rachel Anay with your Real Talk 93.3 local news update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Storms likely this afternoon, otherwise overcast skies. High at 91, southwest winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy tonight, slight chance for storms 77. Thunderstorms likely tomorrow. Highs level off around 90, sunshine mixed with clouds at times. This report is brought to you by the Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Right now, it's 85 degrees.
This is Patty Wilson.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're ready?
He's recording.
Why are you always saying your last name? It's Patty and Scott. Everybody knows
that.
Patty and Scott.
I don't know. This is Patty Wilson. This is. I am Patty Wilson.
What is the idea behind said promo?
It's for Patty's Playhouse. We're on Patty's Playhouse Saturdays at 11. Tune in. That's stupid. Just tune in. Saturdays at 11. Patty Wilson, Patty's Playhouse. House talk with a happy ending.
Each and every time.
There he is. Haven't seen this guy since, what was it? Oh, shoot. U2 at the Sphere in Las Vegas, baby.
Hey, how about that, man? Wasn't that fun?
Good show. Good show. Everything about it. Nearly perfect. Nearly perfect.
I had everything I could possibly want.
I wanted one thing, couldn't find it, and I looked everywhere. No Cubans.
What do you mean?
No Cubans.
There was Cubans.
No, I didn't see any Cubans.
Dude,
no.
I'm sure there was Cubans there. I mean, you know.
No, I walked around. There was a moment right before the show. I thought, got to find some Cubans. Nothing.
Dude, there's Cubans. There was Cubans. I'm sure there was Cubans.
In Las Vegas?
In Las Vegas.
No Cubans in Vegas.
There's Cubans in Vegas, man.
Eddie, there were no Cubans.
Chef.
The sandwich. There were no Cuban sandwiches. You're Cuban. Of course I know there were Cubans there.
Oh, the sandwich. Yeah, no, there probably wasn't many there in Vegas.
No Cubans.
No, not yet.
Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
The Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness. 2 Tallahassee locations, Midtown on Thomasville Road and Northside in the Village Common Shopping Center. Online at orangetheoryfitness.com.
We had a question yesterday, Tom, that was in the Heisen Legal Law Firm chat. I want to get to it in a second. You can post it because obviously we weren't here. By the way, the live chat sponsored by Heisen Legal Law Firm, dedicated to representing clients statewide. If you've been in an accident, call Heisen Legal Law Firm at 813-803-0733 for a free consultation. No cost to you unless they win. Your interests come first with Heisen Legal Law Firm, the name you can trust for justice. Call 813-803-0733, or you can visit them at HeisenLegalLawFirm.com. That's Heisen Legal Law Firm, your advocate in times of need, offices, Tampa. All right, so we had a contribution from Optimus Climb. Hello, Optimus Climb. The more I think about it, I think Toafili will be the most important skill player in 2024. I think he'll be second in rushing and third-ish in receiving yards. 1,000 all-purpose yards for your boy. Thoughts? Well, hey, listen. I like the versatility of Toafili. I really like him as a pass catcher. He's gotten better every year he's been here as a runner. I think we have there's just so many guys that I feel good about to hand the ball to. I wonder, did he say most important offensive player? I believe that's what I read.
He said yes.
Most important skill player?
Yes.
I think that's going to be DJ. I think the quarterback.
Well, okay. Let's eliminate the quarterback. Where do you think we go from there? Is it Benson? Is it Toafili? Is it Roydell? Is it Jalen Lucas?
No, that's interesting. Skill position player.
Because I could see his logic is that Toafili is going to be involved in many facets of what we do.
Yeah. He'll be involved a lot. I mean, golly. You know, it's interesting. I'm going to marry this a little bit into, I saw where people got very concerned about something as silly as EA Sports offensive rankings. And there's a thought that perhaps our ranking was way too low. I don't know if you have that, but people saw it today, and it was sent to me, and I saw it all over the interwebs. And I thought, well, I'm not overly concerned about EA Sports rankings, but okay, they have their offensive rankings, and I think Florida State was down somewhere 12. Was it 12? Did I even have that right?
22.
22. All right, 22. You know, I'm inclined to suggest that one of the reasons that Florida State's ranking is that low and that somebody like, I don't know, Alabama's would be so high is the individual player ratings as opposed to the collective production of an offense. So would Alabama, for example, have higher individual player-for-player rankings for every offensive player? And the answer would largely be yes. Because they're blue-chip players, they're five-star kids, they would largely be yes. So when you see an Alabama at third, you kind of roll your eyes. Like, you could picture Texas having a high-flying offense, of course. You know Georgia and Oregon are going to. You're not real shocked by any of that. But you see Alabama, and you're like, oh, quarterback struggles to throw the forward pass. That seems like it could be problematic. At least throw the forward pass accurately and consistently. And you kind of just roll your eyes a little bit. And I'm guessing, again, that if you go player rating for player rating, down the line, in the backfield, at wide receiver, etc., you're going to see for the Alabama players 97, 95, 96, 94, because they're blue chips. And with Florida State's, you're going to see good rankings, but not 97, 98, 97. You're going to see guys whose potential is very good, but not realized yet. And it would reflect more of who they were when they were recruited.
What's interesting is you see a group like Colorado at number 8 with no offensive line. Did they fix that? Apparently EA Sports thinks that they did, that they're a top 10 offense nationally. Mizzou, all right. Penn State, 12. Interesting.
Again,
NC State, 16. All
yeah,
right.
I know. Right? Yeah.
UCF is a better offense? Brother. The Gus Bus? Okay. All right. So you're telling me that they have, because they're 85 overall, sir, and we're 83 overall. So you're telling me that they have 11 players who, individually speaking, in their ratings are better than our 11 starters at UCF. Okay.
Well, I was trying to make the case for Alabama. I don't know about UCF, and I don't know how they did any of this stuff, and that's why I'm not overly concerned with EA Sports College Football 25 offensive rankings. I don't care, but people do, and it's list season, and you want a reason to get angry. That's true of everybody everywhere anyhow. So maybe that's what it is, but like, they could have had us at 1, and they could have had Georgia at 19, and I would have felt the same way. I would have been like, well, this is silly. I'd have to look into how they came up with that. It doesn't really matter. But I would have rolled my eyes, just as I rolled my eyes with this. But I can't quite figure that out.
Well, here's one way to put it for a conversation starter, because that's what the lists do, is relative to our offense, we are going to be facing 5 opponents who boast a better offense than we do. Miami, Clemson, Notre Dame, Memphis, and SMU. Those are all better offenses than our own. Interesting.
According to what?
According to this ranking system. I'm looking at teams ranked above Florida State in this system. Miami's number 7. Clemson's number 10.
Yeah.
Notre Dame is 17. Memphis 19. And SMU 20. So 5 of our opponents will provide a greater test to our defense than practice will. Interesting. I find that to be hard to believe.
Erroneous is what you would like to say there. Erroneous.
Could be right. We might say, hey, look, we could be streaky, and at that point you could make an argument for it. But, I find that a little hard to believe.
Correct. Listen, Memphis' offense was awesome, and SMU is returning the bulk of their offense, certainly the most important positions, including quarterback. And, that's going to be a very good offense as well. Of course, SMU's offense put up numbers relative to the competition it played, which was not the same, for example, as what Florida State played. So, again, kind of not apples to apples, oranges to oranges. You know what I mean? We're not real sure here.
Well, and that's where I'm actually here for the argument for SMU and Memphis kind of more than I am for Notre Dame or Clemson. Like, really? Okay, these are just going to be world beater offenses that we're facing, huh? All right.
I think Notre Dame's offense is going to be what it wants to be every year, and as it should be, rugged. And you've got an upgraded quarterback, potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
I thought that. I mean, I know they drooled over what's his face because of his hair, but I thought he was average.
I think the new guy. I think you could Spider-Man their quarterbacks.
We'll see. I actually think his upside's better.
Clemson's receivers have gotten better. You were ahead of the curve on that one, but you still got a quarterback who's willing to go rogue at any moment. He can call his own play. That's got to be in the game. That like Clemson has a 3rd and 1, and it's a called run, and then it's just the controller gets taken over, and your guy just
what is going on? Why is he doing this? I did not call this.
He's just carrying out a backside slant. It's not even an option on the play, and he threw it. What?
That's still one of my favorite moments is the post-game press conference after that. When everybody in the stands, including those videos that caught those fans incredulous, what are we doing? Why would we throw that?
Yeah. Guy, you get into the matchmaking thing and your opponent's Clemson. He's like, hang on, my man, I got to pause. I got to get Klubnik out of the game, because he does that thing where he runs his own plays. So I'm going to put backup in so I know what plays we're running.
Yeah, there's too much on the line this particular game to leave it to chance that the computer is going to take over my control and run some asinine play.
Yeah, he's up late, but you're going to get the ball with 1 minute 2 to go and 2 timeouts, and he hits pause, and he hits pause for a depth substitution. You're like, damn it, he remembered.
Oh, man, that's fun stuff. Hour number 2 forthcoming. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV.
Surprising flavors, cultural authenticity, and unique adventures are some of the main ingredients that go into every single plate served at Café de Martín, Tallahassee's best Peruvian dining experience. Led by classically trained Chef Martín, passion for culture, passion for flavor, and a passion for people can be felt from the moment you step inside. Café de Martín also offers an unparalleled outdoor dining experience in the garden. Surrounded by vibrant flowers and plants and nestled between carefully curated decor, the shaded and breezy outdoor garden features elegant live music regularly, and the romantic evening lighting makes Café de Martín the best place to share conversation and connect with the ones you love. Every dish is made from scratch, and every drink is handmade by trained bartenders, offering the very best margaritas and old fashions in the city. Take a trip to a Peruvian paradise right here in the capital city. Visit Café de Martín and El Bar on Capitol Circle Northeast in the Esposito Shopping Center. Open daily for lunch, happy hour, and dinner. Find the full menu online at cafedemartin.com.
When you need a plumber quick, how long is an acceptable time to have to wait?
Yeah, hey, it's the Millers again. Just calling you about our little plumbing problem.
2 hours?
Hey, we were hoping you can get here soon because the water is getting really bad. I mean, please hurry.
4 hours?
I know you said you were on your way, but, honey, tell the kids to tread water.
8 hours?
Don't worry about us. We're fine.
At M&L Plumbing, you'll never have to wait long for quality, dependable service right when you need it. At M&L Plumbing, we listen to our customers, and our qualified technicians aim to achieve 100% customer satisfaction. So the next time you need plumbing work or repairs, think of the name M&L Plumbing, your local plumbing experts, commercial or residential. Give us a call, 850-575-9393, or visit us online at mndlplumbing.com. M&L Plumbing, for all of your plumbing needs.
Whidden Glass has been taking care of business since 1945. When you call Whidden Glass, you're dealing with experienced, reliable professionals who offer only the best. Like Whidden's top-of-the-line bath enclosures that provide style and luxury at an affordable price. Eye-catching storefronts are a specialty at Whidden Glass. We'll help you design it and install it. Whidden Glass, the first name in glass replacement. Call 222-5781.
Attention Florida, are you a victim of an auto accident? We introduce our live chat sponsor, Hyson Leaka Law Firm, dedicated to representing injured clients statewide. If you've been in an accident, call Hyson Leaka Law Firm at 813-803-0733 for a free consultation. Remember, there's no cost to you unless they win. Your interests come first with Hyson Leaka Law Firm, the name you can trust for justice. Call 813-803-0733 now or visit HysonLeakaLawFirm.com. Heisen Legal Law Firm, your advocate in times of need.
Coming up next, more of the Jeff Cameron Show. Live and local on Real Talk 93.3. WVFT, Greta, Tallahassee. The latest betting odds and live movements from Vegas. This is your action update. Now here are your latest lines from our guys in the desert.
Tom Kim 12-1 to win the Rocket Mortgage Classic this week on the PGA Tour at the Detroit Golf Club. Cameron Young is 16-1. Richard Bland is a 5-1 favorite to win the U.S. Senior Open Championship in Newport, Rhode Island. He won his Champions Tour debut at the Senior PGA Championship. Steve Stricker plus 650. Lee Westwood makes his debut on the Champions Tour at 7-1. Patrick Harrington plus 750. Baseball today, the Atlanta Braves a $2.90 favorite at the Chicago White Sox plus 235. 8 under at guaranteed rate field. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. Progressive.com. For more sports betting news and information, go to VSIN.com. Mike Sennett, Real Talk 93.3.
Find what you love, love what you find. A Total Wine and More. There's so much waiting for you. All kinds of beers and thousands of wines. Guys in the know and prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love and love what you find.
Only at Total Wine and More. Drink responsibly. Be 21.
It's time for July 4th doorbusters at Lowe's. Now through July 1st, save $900 on a Lowe's exclusive Hisense French door refrigerator. Was $18.99, now just $9.99. And get 3 for $10 on 10-pound bags of Royal Oak charcoal for all your summer barbecues. Shop these deals before they're gone, because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 7/1. Appliance price includes all discounts while supplies last.
Dude, that's quality radio right there. Tell us how you really feel.
Sorry, man. I'm just so tired.
And why do we think we're tired?
Oh, I haven't made the Grassroots coffee yet.
Yep, Grassroots coffee. Tastes even better than it smells.
Roasted to perfection.
And so many blends and single origin coffees. You can have a different tasting coffee every day of the week.
You can order directly from grassrootscoffee.com.
And with a Grassroots coffee subscription, you'll never run out of your favorite brew.
Locally owned, locally roasted for everyone and loved everywhere.
That's Grassroots coffee.
Dream it, plan it, do it. Brian Barnard's Flooring America offers a straightforward way to shop with our streamlined shopping. Finding the right flooring is simple. Visit our newly remodeled showroom featuring the Room to Explore shopping experience, where our knowledgeable staff will walk you through the steps. Our family has been serving the area since 1976 with a local staff of more than 35 people trained in flooring sales and design. We know floors, and we know styles. Let us help make your home timeless. Brian Barnard's Flooring America, where friends send friends.
On the front lines, fighting the insanity of the woke. It's
Fitness has done it again, adding more ways for you to improve your health and look your best. In addition to the always great standard workouts, OTF has added Tread 50 and Strength 50 for those in the mood to just lift for an afternoon or attack those cardio goals for the day. Take the guesswork out of exercise. Make sure you're getting the most out of each and every workout. Orange Theory Fitness, location Midtown Tallahassee and Village Square Boulevard.
Broadcasting live from Florida's capital city, this is the Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness on Real Talk 93.3. Now, stop what you're doing and listen closely. It's time for the Jeff Cameron Show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
and away we go. By the way, if you're out and about, listening on 93.3, we really, really appreciate you. If you're watching on Warchant TV, appreciate you as well. Heisen Legal Law Firm chat, folks. Chatting it up, doing what you do, which I always appreciate. That adds to it as well. You know, I was thinking too, Tom, about this, like I said last hour when we got into the recruiting discussion and different angles on this thing. I'm really happy for Ernie Sims. I know we mentioned it the other day with the NCAA agreeing to ease the restrictions on countable coaches. Ernie is a guy that has unending enthusiasm and relentless passion, right? He's going to be, I think, a huge asset to Florida State's ability to bring in linebackers. I think he's a guy that now has the opportunity, because we saw whenever we talked with him, for those that don't know, Tom and I worked with him at the old ESPN radio spot. And Tom, you did a show with him for a time there once a week, right? And that was a fun little show, and it was interesting to watch him learn. But he attacked that. The point is, anytime he talked about football, he lit up. And he just loves the game, and it's infectious. He has great knowledge of the X's and O's of the game, so his ability to teach it now on the field and be able to talk to kids on the field is huge.
Yeah, I was able to do work with, we did 2 days a week, I think, for a while there, Monday, Thursday, when we were in season, and then it was 1 day a week when we were out of season, and then some work on Warchant TV, actually, before I was a full-time employee, where we would do breakdowns. And remember, we had the big the touch screen that all the shows have now. It was before SportsCenter had that stuff where you could draw on the screen. And I remember Ernie going through coverage rules and principles based upon whatever the called defensive set was, and how in Dallas he had one set of rules, and in Detroit he had another set, and Philly, and or was it? I'm sorry, it was Philly and Detroit. And he went through the different rules he had in the different places. And man, I understand what Justin Cryer was talking about yesterday when he said that, Ernie is about small details. Ernie is about little things. He's about footwork. He's about, maybe alignment, or I'm assuming maybe the way your hips are angled, the way your shoulders are angled. Like, those little details will help you make the play. It makes sense when you have somebody who played the position at the NFL level for as long as Ernie did, because every 100th of a second, let alone 10th of a second, every 100th of a second makes a difference about where you can get to stop certain things. So it does not surprise me that he is very detail sound. I think it's going to be great to be out there in camp, which we're hearing is probably less than a month away now.
Oh, it's definitely less than a month away.
Like getting out to camp and seeing the instruction happen. I'm going to get a kick out of that, man. That'll be a lot of fun.
Charlie writes, Jeff, you have to get Ernie on for an interview. Absolutely. He's already offered it up. When he came back, I gave him a big hug first day that he was out there, and we yucked it up and talked. And I talked to Ernie back when he was getting into coaching. And I remember, his path and what he was trying to do. And I remember thinking, well, he's so relatable. Kids are going to love him. Ernie, I believe, was the highest ranked recruit ever to sign with Florida State. I believe that is correct. Pretty cool honor to have.
He's a pro's pro. I remember one day we were in the studio, and it was, I don't know, the show was coming up in 5 minutes. And he goes, I'm having a really bad day. I'm not in a good mood. And I look at him and I go, I'm in a horrible mood too. And he goes, okay, well, let's do this. And we just both put on the headset and we go, I'm like, man, I appreciate that. He communicates the good and the bad. I'm having a crappy day, not happy, in a horrible mood, going to be difficult. And I said, I looked, me the same. Okay, let's go to work now.
Well, buddy, that's the job, right? That's the thing. I mean, I'm taking tomorrow off because I feel like ass. That's what I do with it. I run.
I am too.
You were going to do it too. You're going to take the day off as well.
I got plenty of other stuff to do, but yeah. So.
It's July and there's nothing going on, and I don't feel well, so I'm taking tomorrow off. That's how that's going to work. Yeah. But that's all right. We'll get through. We'll power through this one. And I am legitimately excited about the things that I've talked about today with recruiting. I got kind of stuck doing this. I was going further down the rabbit hole, and the more I did it, the more I was like, oh, yeah, and he's going to be good, and that's really cool that we're probably going to sign him. And I'm getting more and more excited every day about, because you know me, again, it's about the trenches. And so Ty Haywood and Kevin Wynn and Josh Petty and Solomon Thomas, the Javion Hilson kid off the edge, I got very, very excited about. Now you start adding to that All of a sudden, I don't need it to be a 24-man class. It can be like, 17 to 18 blue chip ass kickers. I'm fine with that. I don't even know what. I know Michael Langston tonight at 7:30. There's a recruiting chat. Is that correct? Warchant TV tonight. I'll tune in.
7:00. Yes, 7:00.
All right, 7:00. I'll be locked in. I'll be laying there with my laptop on my chest, laying on the couch, watching Michael tell us about how good Florida State's class is about to be.
That is a very, I say modern. That is a my era kind of a thing. To lay there with the laptop on your chest. I remember because MLB TV was in its infancy, and I had this giant Dell Inspiron computer that I had gotten with my graduation. I mean, those things were flying off the shelves in the mid-2000s. They were huge, probably 15 pounds, massive machines. But you would lay with the laptop on your chest, and then you would tilt the screen to where it's almost going to auto shut because that's the angle you need to see.
Yeah, I forgot about those giant Dell computers.
Oh my God!
Remember my Wheezy? My Wheezy was a Dell.
Is she still wheezing?
She's still around. She's still around, old Wheezy. I got to start her up at some point soon. I'd like to see what's on Wheezy, what's on the hard drive of Wheezy there. I mean, who knows? I got probably old pictures that didn't transfer over and stuff like that, and just events we were at.
You might have some old show content too. That'd be good.
Yeah, I'm sure we do. And, today is a day that, countdown to kickoff is in the 50s. All right. So we are now in the 50s. And just so you guys know, I like to give you a peek behind the curtain. We here at Warchant are organizing the next several weeks. And, yesterday, Tom gives me a call and we're talking about who's going to Charlotte, what our responsibilities are, ACC kickoff. Got an email yesterday from the folks in Ireland and the organizers at Aer Lingus wanting us to lock in our credentials. Certainly going to do that. Pulling the trigger on the flight. Ran into a coach. I will just tell you that. I ran into a coach, not the head coach, but a coach. And he was excited about the start of camp. And we were kind of chit-chatting a little bit about that. It's almost here is the thing. And everything gets sped up. And so all of a sudden you kind of open your eyes and realize, man, I got to get organized because this year more than any other, or one in a long time anyhow, I've got several to-do lists. There's Ireland, which is obviously we're going there. We're going to do live shows from there. We're going to do a pregame from there. We're going to see so many people. It's going to be a blast. And, the opportunity to interview Von Strecker will be huge for us. But then also I want to go to the SMU game. I'm going to the Notre Dame game and staying in Chicago and then headed over there. That's another road game that I'm going to. We already mentioned some of the other matchups. I'll probably head down to Miami. I tend to go to those when those are high profile. There was a stretch of 25 years where I didn't miss an FSU Miami game. Legitimately did not miss one in person.
That is the day after my birthday, Jeff. See, there you go. I'm learning from you. I'm learning from the best.
That's right. You'll be almost 40.
Man, 38 special.
Before you know it. Yeah, that'll be good. But yeah, I'll head down there, and I actually think that is going to be a highly competitive game. I'm strangely excited about. It's a weird way to say it. Strangely excited about the ACC because I think Clemson is going to be good. I think Florida State is going to be good. I think Miami is going to be good. I know a lot of people don't. I think they will be pretty good. I think it really matters early on. I think that we'll see how they respond if they were to lose to Florida. Kind of interesting to see if that can be kept together if that happens. Actually, it's just kind of fun to watch the two programs be in a state of, a little bit of a disorientation, right? Like, is there season on the line in that game? It's kind of, you almost think it a little bit for both programs. You're kind of like, the loser of this game's in trouble.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that this game occurs the first year of the expanded playoff. Because if it was a year with only 4 teams, it most certainly would be that your season's done down the drain. But because there's an auto bid for the ACC champion, I think Mario would have one final pitch to make, and it would be a legitimate one. Well, I hate that we lost today, guys. But once we roll over this Mickey Mouse schedule that we have in the ACC and we play in Charlotte, all of our goals are in front of us. We'll use this as a learning experience. If it was last year's scenario where you could have won all your games in the ACC and beaten the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and not made it from the ACC, I think they would have fallen apart. But he still has a pitch to make if they blow it and lose to the Gators.
He does, and he's got talent. The defensive line in particular is going to be good. I think they'll be better at quarterback. I'm not here to tell you Cam Ward is going to be a Heisman candidate, but I think he'll be better. He'll play better for them, and if they're able to run the ball, they'll be in games because they're going to defend. I don't like complimenting Miami. Hate it. In fact, I usually loathe it and find a way not to do it. But I'm being a realist about what our season looks like and how the schedule's difficult. If you go 10-2 or better with this schedule, and I think Florida State will, if you go 10-2 or better with this schedule, you've had another really good season. You've further solidified being a upper crust team in college football. That's now, we start getting into debates when you say, what's a step back? What's a huge step back? Well, obviously, if you go undefeated like they did last year, 13-0, a singular loss in theory is a step back, but we both know that's not true. So what would be considered a significant step back? 9-3? Is 9-3 a step back from a realistic expectation of what Florida State should be this year?
The moment that you got DJU, yes. If you didn't have him, no. But you got him. You signaled what you signaled. You go into the portal. You address needs with a stud legacy player at defensive end, along with other multiple defensive ends you brought in. Darrell Jackson's back. Josh Farmer's retained. You get Malik Benson. Yeah, man. 9-3 would be a disappointment and a step back. 100%.
Yeah, because I think that the most probable outcomes, if we were laying percentages on them, are somewhere between the two highest? You think the two highest are 10-2 and 11-1, or do you think it's 11-1 and 9-3?
A 1 or a 2 loss season, I think, are the highest probabilities. The question is, what's more likely, 9-3 or 12-0?
Oh, that is a fun question.
Probably 9-3. Probably.
Yeah, I think probably 9-3. 8-4 in the chat is Optimist says is a major step back, reevaluating the program. I don't know that I would be reevaluating the program.
It would be a strike. It would be a strike, though, wouldn't it? You'd be like, come on, man. That would be, hey, man, what the hell was that?
Yeah, and I wonder who we'd be blaming. I think right now, as we sit here today, if that happened, I think we'd be blaming this offense. I don't think we're going to be blaming the defense.
Mm-hmm. It's funny.
Partly for all that you said. Partly for all these. I will admit, so a mutual friend of ours said when he heard us, I brought this up the other day, said, it sounds like you're a little less gung-ho about this team than you were a few weeks ago, Jeff. And I said, no, I'm willing to admit that there are areas that people are going to have to prove themselves. And so by definition, that kind of makes you reticent to put all the chips in the middle of the table. So, for example, tight end. Is that going to be a plus for this team? It wasn't a year ago. Is it going to be a plus for us this year? Well, I think Warlock's going to be pretty good. Will he be a better blocker than he was a year ago? Yes, I think he will be. Will he be a very good blocker? Probably not. Yeah, and then Jackson West. Well, Jackson West is who you brought up the other day. And, of course, we both would say that, okay, fine, he's the most likely candidate to be an inline blocker, but neither one of us could say for certain that he's going to be healthy enough to do that for more than, say, 6 games.
Right. This is a group offensively that we believe is going to have to rely on Mike Norvell's aptitude a little bit more than last year's group. Last year it was maddeningly simple what we were doing. It worked. And clearly we had so much talent that even when it didn't work at the most efficient rate, we could go undefeated. And we did, obviously, in the games that Jordan played at a better level than without him. But this year is going to have to be more creative, we would think, right? And it's funny, when you describe it in those terms, it is the defense that provides the emotional and mental insurance policy and stability in my confidence. When I'm reflecting on, man, why do I feel that the floor is high? It's not because I'm thinking we're dropping 42 a game. It's because I think we're holding opponents to 24 or fewer a game.
Yeah, it's a weird way of saying that I think we might be a little bit more efficient. I think we're going to be able to run the ball better, which allows us to not have to be so reliant on our defense. Like, I think the defense will be very, very good, but I they're going to have opportunities to get rest because I think we're going to be able to move the football a little bit more consistently. And also, if you run the football, you eat a little time off the clock. We had several stretches of offensive play last year where we were just throwing the ball because we couldn't run it. And if you're a little off, if you're not in sync, if it's whatever, inclement that day, you're missing a starter or a starting wide receiver is a little banged up, isn't able to gain separation, wherever he catches it is where he's getting tackled, then it got bogged down because Jordan wasn't going to run. And so you were just sort of like, all right, this is it. Offensive line is substandard. Jordan's not going to run, and our skill position players are banged up.
Here we go. It could get fun here when you're thinking about comparison of the offenses in Mike's time here. Like I saw Wake Up they had a segment and they put a video out about comparing this group to can they be as good as 2012? Because that was like an on the cusp level team, and 2012's Florida State team would have made the playoff. With this size of the field, that would have been a playoff team. But I think the fun part to look at, and this is what gets me excited about the offense, is just go back with Mike 2 years. They weren't star-studded 2 years ago. I mean, Pokey Wilson was the guy that made the big plays in our games early on against LSU, against Miami. He's the one who
he made big plays all the time, yeah.
Trayshawn Ward is a dude that we leaned on to make a ton of plays as the season went along. And we had Cam McDonald at tight end. It wasn't Jaheim Bell. It wasn't somebody who was thought of the way that Jaheim was in the preseason. And Jaheim could have been something different when healthy. Don't get me wrong, but they were an explosive offense with a couple of different pieces on the offensive line, a 2-back system with Trayshawn and Trey Benson that were unproven at the time. And Pokey Wilson, who had been here for 50 years, ends up being a big piece to the puzzle as Johnny was emerging, and Micah Pittman was a part of that process. You've got, I think, better skill position players here now than you did 2 years ago, and that team that team we discovered out of nothing.
The threat, though, was that Jordan would run, and teams had to respect that.
100%.
They certainly didn't have to respect that last year.
100% agree. That's why last year was a little less enjoyable than the Discovery.
It was unenjoyable in a lot of ways.
The 2 years ago was the Discovery process of that offense was amazing. From watching Jordan's performance in LSU for the rest of the season, you're like, man, outside of the NC State, I don't know what that was that night. It was a lot of fun to watch. And Mike had less to work with 2 years ago and had a better, more fun offense, an offense that maximized its potential more 2 years ago than he did last year. That is what would give me hope for this year's offense to be productive because DJ is going to run too. It's not the same type, but it's enough to account for a defender and change the lanes and the math.
He does. That's exactly right. He does not have to be electrifying for this to work in other areas. That is to say, for it to positively affect your traditional run game. Like if he's a threat to run and he does run and he will keep, then you've got a problem. You've got to account for that. And then Mike will do what he's always done. He's always created a running game, even when they had lesser talent. Last year was the first time that he really didn't. And you could see how pissed he was. There are a lot of games where Mike has that look on his face. I called it last year when I said every time the camera would cut to him and he'd do the thing where his hands are on his thighs, where he's just kind of bent over and he's got that look like, well, what am I going to do here? I got nothing else. It's the first time I'd ever seen him in a situation where we became so predictable and there was nothing off of it. You're like, he's down to this. This is what he's going to do. He's going to throw it up. He's going to throw it up 3 times. Watch. He's going to throw it up 3 times right here. And maybe one of our guys will just make a play. I mean, he hated that.
I don't think he had a great time. No, I think in a way he had more fun in the Florida game than he did for, say, the Clemson game, because Florida, we're outgunned. You got to create. You got to find a way, and you're banged up. The Pitt game, I'm sure, was probably more enjoyable than the Clemson game.
That was a tough game, though. His options were very limited. I mean, that's the Ja'Kai Douglas game, right? You got not a lot.
But you've got no time to be disappointed. You've got no time to think about this is not good enough because you're lost in how do I squeeze all the juice I can out of this particular situation and steer us to a victory? And I felt like that's what 2 years ago was more about. They changed their game plan and were pretty multiple 2 years ago. Like, not Miami. They didn't need to be because they just did the same thing over and over, and Miami didn't stop it. But, I mean, the way it came out against LSU was different than Miami. That it was different than Syracuse. I mean, he had a lot of fun a couple of years ago.
Yeah, think about the play Fintrell Cypress makes against Pitt. Think about that play. If he doesn't make that play, I'm going to suggest we lose that game.
We might very well.
I think we're going to lose the game if he doesn't make that play. With the way things were going, and that was going the wrong way, and you're going, we don't have options. We don't have, oh, man. And think about it. And I keep reminding myself of this, and I know it sounds so negative when you're talking about the aspects of the offense that failed a year ago and why and how frustrating it all was. Admittedly, last year was amazing. They went 13-0. I mean, good Lord, how in the world would, we're not complaining. I'm just observing that I don't think that was a lot of fun for Mike. I think he felt frustrations offensively. I mean, this is a guy who's a dynamic play caller, a great offensive mind. There's the look. That's the look.
I was hunting for it as you were talking, and I got to make sure we got to wipe up the credit for it, and I will. But I was hunting through the database, and I was like, I know we've got one. I've used this photo. How many games did he look like that?
Oh, there's so many. He has those moments. He gets so frustrated where he's like, really? This is what we are today? I got, okay, all right. And you could just, the frustration, it is palpable. And yet they went 13-0 because they were a complete team and the defense rose up and so many other factors. But yeah, I get it. When somebody's listening to that, they're like, guys, we went 13-0. What are you complaining? I'm not complaining. It's an observation that the offense, to me, was so feast or famine. We had all these big plays with Benson, but the offensive running game was not consistently good. So it gets overshadowed by some of these games where he goes well over 100 yards, and you're like, well, what are you talking about? He had 72 of those came on one play.
Right.
And the rest of these carries are for less than 2 yards. They're all just nothing.
For the podcasters, the radio audience, again, like you said, he's hunched over at the waist, and he's got his hands on his knees, and he's just looking incredulous and frustrated. And to your point, you want to take a guess what game this was? It's clearly an early in the day kick, and it's a roadie. Any guess as to what game this was?
No.
Okay. It's Wake when we whooped that ass. But even on that day, he's like, man, we are not doing as I thought we would.
There's no greater example of a score or a result being something that can completely overshadow a bunch of miserable failures within what you're trying to accomplish, right? Like you get a win, you score a bunch of points, then the Southern Miss game. Mm-hmm. I just remember texting you that next day, being like, look how many of these runs went for 1 or less yards. It was like 50 of the 60 runs. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. Just looking at the drive chart, you're like, this is awful. This is no, this is not good. And then it looked like we were just running things that like you would drop in the sand.
Jordan did once or twice. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, because he knew they couldn't get to him because our offensive line was able to block their defensive line. So he could stand back there for days and just kind of run around. I'm like, man, this is not even an offense. This is troubling. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future.
You probably already know that Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas is your one-stop destination for all pool maintenance needs, offering everything you need from chemicals, cleaners, vacuums, nets, and more. But that's not all. Pinch a Penny also carries a huge selection of premium hot springs hot tubs paired with easy financing options, making these luxury hot tubs affordable for everyone. And if you have an older hot tub and you're worried about the hassle of removing it, worry no more. Pinch a Penny will not only remove and haul away your old hot tub, but also offer a trade-in value for a credit towards your new one. So why wait? Visit Pinch A Penny's 12,000 square foot showroom today on Greer Road and discover how effortless and affordable owning a fantastic hot tub can be. Find out more at TallahasseeHotSpring.com. That's TallahasseeHotSpring.com.
July 9, 1755, near Fort Duquesne, now the city of Pittsburgh, a 23-year-old British officer leads his troops in battle during the French and Indian War. Though fired upon repeatedly, this young lieutenant colonel remains unharmed to the disbelief of the native warriors. 15 years later, a respected chief sat over a council fire with this same man. As he told all those listening, the Great Spirit protects this man and guides his destiny. He will become the chief of nations, and a people yet unborn will hail him as the founder of a mighty empire. The man was George Washington, who went on to become the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army and the first president of the United States.
Wishing you a happy Independence Day from Crown Networking, intelligent next-generation office phone systems and services in their new location in Midtown Tallahassee. Call today and get 3 months of service free. 850-999-0090. Online at crownnetworking.com.
Hey, let me tell you about my friends at Tried and True Consulting, a Seminole-owned business that specializes in payments and business solutions. Tried and True's core expertise includes card, ACH, point of sale, mobile, e-commerce, and hosted payment solutions. Tried and True will help you reduce costs and increase your bottom line. That always sounds nice. Whether you're a retailer, restaurant, licensed professional, or service industry, Tried and True is saving you money. Tried and True's expertise extends to payroll, video menu ad boards, IT services, web design, and social media. It's time to make one call and tell the competition to take it on down the road. Call Don or Joe today at 844-464-6653. That's 844-464-6653. When you do business with Tried and True, they contribute 10% of the net revenue to the battle's end. So go Tried and True today. Call 844-464-6653. Science-backed, technology-tracked, and coach-led. Hey, Jeff Cameron here. You've heard me rave about the benefits of Orange Theory Fitness and the proven track record of science-backed interval training. Well, now Orange Theory Fitness has done it again, adding more ways for you to improve your health and look your best. In addition to the always great standard workouts, OTF has added Tread 50 and Strength 50. For those in the mood to just lift for an afternoon or attack those cardio goals for the day. Take the guesswork out of exercise. Make sure you're getting the most out of each and every workout. Orange Theory Fitness, location Midtown Tallahassee and Village Square Boulevard.
The Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness. 2 Tallahassee locations, Midtown on Thomasville Road and Northside in the Village Common Shopping Center. Online at orangetheoryfitness.com.
All right, well, let's solve for the future with our friends at ISF. That shouldn't be too difficult to do given our conversation that we just had a moment ago. And you might ask, okay, well, fine, how does that work? Well, I'll tell you about that in just a second. My friends at ISF have been wonderful collaborators here with the Jeff Cameron Show. We appreciate them. ISF helps agencies conduct feasibility studies to figure out the best tech enhancements, the right people, the most efficient processes. They schedule 4Bs to seek the funding that they need, make those changes and modernize. They've done this for lots of people. Department of Economic Opportunity. They've done it with the Department of Children and Families, Department of Health, Process Innovation, Florida Department of Health again, Agency for Health Care. They've done it through compensation studies. Florida's Guardian Ad Litem, you know about those guys. Florida's Department of Revenue. ISF is making your life a lot easier and much more efficient. You've got ideas, you work in state government, you want to make sure that you have the technology necessary to succeed, to push forward those ideas, to be a player in the community. ISF's national, but they're also local. They're right here in Tallahassee, and they are a lot of fun to work with. Let's solve for the future doing just that, Tom. The run game is what we were just speaking of, and I'm going to rely heavily on the 2 guards that they were brought in. My question mark is whether or not TJ Ferguson can improve. I know PFF isn't everything, but I would say that his ratings in the run blocking aspect of this have to be better. Richie Leonard is very athletic for his sizable girth. People like that shouldn't be able to move like that, so I suspect he'll be fine in the run game. I need TJ to step up. He was fine in the passing game. He's a big, big, big body. They've got options there. By the way, we can't overlook the fact that Armella may be a guy who takes a step forward here too. He wasn't devoid of good days during the spring. He's a guy that's completely bought in. I think it's worth noting he's still here. I thought he'd be gone by now given his high profile when he signed. So, you've got some, and again, Estes, I've always loved Estes, one of the strongest guys on the team. He just hasn't found that consistency either, but he's a big, strong dude and athletic. So, again, you have some options, including some guys that played a lot last year, that if it doesn't work out with both guards, you've got some guys you can rotate around.
And they did that on the right side last year with Dimitri Emanuel and Keandre Jones. You would see those two players rotate at the right side often. And that's where
Big Meech, by the way.
Yeah, well, we need to get back and talking to Big Meech. He's got some good stories, man.
He's a great guy. Very, very, very. We're gonna miss Big Meech. I think as a team, I think they're gonna miss him, man. The guy is very smart and has great perspective and was a good player.
He was instructing at one of the camps recently over the summer where they, Florida State hosted kids to come in. And I wonder, now with unlimited staff members, maybe he could be an offensive line instructor. Like he just graduated out of Alex Atkins' program. Maybe he'd be a great liaison between Atkins and Gabe and be a nice little bridge between coaches and players. And because he's smart enough to do it, there's no doubt about that. It's just I do wonder if they're going to throw numbers at the problem and rotate beyond that right guard position. I would imagine for the reasons you specified, unless Ferguson has an amazing camp, that at least one of the guard positions is going to see a pretty healthy rotation based upon the opponent, based upon fatigue. Yeah. And Alex Atkins has been adamant that he says he sets the substitution patterns. If as long as everybody's healthy and the game goes according to script, on drive 3, this is your responsibility. He doesn't make a choice between drives and go with a hot hand. They define what the rotation is going to be. I just wonder where else would you have a rotation, if anywhere? Right tackle is where we're all looking and we're wondering, would there be a rotation there to see maybe if somebody takes the reps and becomes a 100% of the game type of player? But I do think that Keandre Jones definitely has to be in that mix. And Estes surprised me. He was out there early in the spring showcase. He was with the ones towards the end of spring practice, which we can say now because they did it during the showcase. I don't know. Maybe there's a home for him too, and you rotate both guard positions. It's just that rotation is going to be a fun thing to watch as we get through camp and into the games.
It's interesting. We're talking about solving for the future, and we're looking at guys who are candidates to help do that. But it does, once again, further embolden and bolster our conversation and discussion around these offensive linemen that were just here and that we think we're going to be able to bring in. You just have to have a more consistent, higher quality of player that you're building towards getting them out there, and you do that through recruiting. The offensive line portal players were a quick fix. They got you to where you were serviceable. They got to where you were serviceable, but you've yet to be able – I really think that is the fundamental difference between where Florida State's at and where a couple of other programs are at. The level of elite play on the offensive line. If you get to that where you look out there, because when you look at a Michigan or a Georgia or an Alabama, 9 times out of 10, you're looking at 5-star kids across the board. They're all studs. They're all guys that project to be drafted very highly. All of them. And then they'll put in a backup, and you're like, well, that dude was a 5-star from such and such. And we're not there. We are not there. That's the next big step. That's why, getting a Haywood and getting a Petty and getting a Thomas and getting guys like that's going to be huge. Got to get those guys. No, it's no guarantee that they're all going to work out. Simmons could still work out. He was one of those guys. And he's a great athlete for his size, great feet. He's long. He's a prototypical tackle. It may work out. I haven't given up on him. He was kind of the one that you circled and said, because a lot of people get caught up in Armella, but it was Simmons that you looked at and said, that's different. That looks like the kind of guy that goes to the aforementioned teams. Just unfortunately missed a year medically. But, he's back now working his ass off and was repping in spring. So I got to assume this has been a very important offseason for him.
Yeah, I'll go back 2 springs when he was an early enrollee, first taste of college football. Towards the end of camp, he was getting important reps at tackle, important ones. And he was holding his own. You could tell raw skills, but you could also tell natural skills that, could handle a refined pass rusher, maybe not on the level of a Jared Verse, but a good replacement level college defensive end. And this battle is not just going to be in fall camp. That is the best compliment that I can offer to this offensive line, is that I don't think the team that we roll out there against Tech is going to be the starting 5 offensive line that we roll out there against Notre Dame in November. I think there's going to be some shuffling as the season goes along, because beyond Byers, he has to be feeling the pressure, has to be. You've got Otto, who can play across the line, and man, he looks awfully natural at a lot of different places, more than I thought. And Lucas Simmons ready, and Robert Scott potentially healthy. I mean, you're talking about 4 players for 1 spot at tackle, and I'm assuming that it's going to be the right side because Mike said that Darius is going to be an awesome left tackle for us.
He's locked in on that. Yeah.
Why would Norvell declare that or this far out if he thought that was going to be a true battle? Think about where we are now in that realm. It's not all through the portal. It's not all through high school. It's a combination. You're talking about 4 players for 1 spot at tackle. I like that. That's a lot different than it used to be.
Yeah, I really hope, and I know it sounds so negative, but I really hope Robert Scott can get healthy. I don't know that that's going to happen. I'm not including him in the conversation of counting guys that might play at tackle. I could be wrong. He might play. And he might play well. Because when he does play, Tom, he's pretty good. He's pretty good when he does play.
I should also mention Jalen Early, who they really like. And the coaching staff always brings his name up. Now, I would think that this would be a important fall for him to get some reps and play in some games. But, okay, you could eliminate Scott and say it's still a 4-man discussion for a rotation. They might want to rotate. I mean, I think that was originally the plan 2 years ago with that offensive line when Jazz ended up taking the right tackle spot. They actually had Jazz at guard. But I thought they were going to rotate on that side anyway. So you do have numbers, like good players to throw at the problem, and maybe we don't have a right tackle that can go 60 snaps. Maybe we have 2 that can go 30.
When we get to where we want to be and we recruit to where we are supposed to be on the offensive line and those guys emerge, and I get all the reasons why it hasn't happened up to this point, and I'm fine with that. This is not casting blame, but now's the time to make sure we start hitting some home runs here in recruiting. And I think we will. So there's that. But when we get to that place, I just don't sense that we're going to be sitting here too often talking about rotating our tackles. I think we're going to go, yeah, that guy's going to start there, and we're going to lock him in, and that's the end of that.
Hey, you know what? I got to disagree. We're ahead of the game. Because we're going to be playing so many games, and there's going to be so many spots in the playoff that you're going to need to give guys a breather. We are already in the trial phase of something that is going to be the new normal, which is, oh, look at that. Well, we don't need Darius this week. We already have our playoff fate secured, so we're going to give him a breather.
Yeah, can you imagine? We're sitting here, you and I, watching our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're like, we're going to go ahead and rotate Tristan Wirfs out of here. Yeah, let's don't do that. Let's not do that. He's one of the 3 best tackles in football. I'd like him to stay out there as much as possible, like every snap, frankly. He's paid very, very handsomely.
Let's keep him out there. Nope, got to keep him fresh.
I'm not doing that. Once we find the guys. Our thanks to ISF. Always fun to solve for the future with them. ISF.com to learn more. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Your local news now.
A Tallahassee man was sentenced to life in prison without parole Monday for opening fire on a crowded basketball court in 2022. Derek Thomas, 23 years old, was sentenced to life without parole for a first-degree murder based on the discharge of a firearm in life with a 20-year minimum mandatory sentence for attempted first-degree murder counts 2 through 5 to be served consecutively. His sentencing comes after being found guilty Thursday on those same charges after a 2-day trial. Thomas was accused of opening fire on the FAMU basketball courts in November 2022, killing an innocent bystander 20-year-old Travis Huntley and leaving 4 other people hurt. Before his sentencing, Thomas expressed concerns about the discovery period and claimed he was not shown the video of the shooting, which was used as evidence. His attorney told the judge that the content of the video was described to Thomas. The judge determined that Thomas had been adequately informed, but that he could make an appeal after sentencing. This is Rachel Anay with your Real Talk 93.3 Local News Update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Storms likely this afternoon, otherwise overcast skies. High of 91, southwest winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy tonight, slight chance for storms 77. Thunderstorms likely tomorrow. Highs level off around 90, sunshine mixed with clouds at times. This report is brought to you by the Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Currently 84.
Did you know that the survivability of a metal roof far exceeds that of a traditional shingle roof? At Metal Roofing Sales of Tallahassee, we have new state-of-the-art roll formers that produce the highest quality Versa panel, PBR panel, and standing seam options. And we will guarantee to match or beat any local competitor's pricing. We're a family-owned business ready to offer you the best sales and installation service in the area. And don't forget about our veterans and first responders discounts. Call Metal Roofing Sales today, 850-536-9123, or visit us online at metalroofingSales.net.
There is no Bigfoot, Eddie. Would you stop with that nonsense?
There's a Bigfoot, Jeff.
I wish there were. By the way, I don't want you to point to me as the guy that takes all the fun out of the room. I wish there was the Loch Ness Monster. I wish there was the Bigfoot. I wish there was the Chupacabra. All the things.
They're all mythical except for the Bigfoot. The Sasquatch.
The Bigfoot?
The Bigfoot. There's big feet. There's lots of them.
So like different breeds, like different kinds
there's like families. There's different families. And,
so there's if they're in the snow, you call them a Sasquatch
or the Yeti, right?
Yeah,
and then here in Florida, that's a skunk ape. And but
never heard that one. By the way, why do you think it's real? We would have found them by now.
They're the hide and seek champions of the world. Nobody finds the Bigfoot.
But I think you believe in Bigfoot.
I do believe in Bigfoot.
You don't believe.
I believe in Bigfoot.
Don't tell anybody you believe in Bigfoot.
I would go look for Bigfoot, but he scares me.
Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com. Now, back to Jeff on Real Talk 93.3.
It'll be fun when we do reach that place that you and I were just discussing. When it's like, oh, he's a monster. You forget, one thing I am reminded of, even in 2013, when we were so good and could do really what we wanted to do against most people for a variety of reasons, but namely talent, I don't know that we sat down to watch games and assumed that our offensive line was great. That's the one position group that every fan base gets pissed at all times, because when they make a mistake, it is so glaring. And if a play fails and you're tackled for a loss, it is so easy to forget that the other guy is also on scholarship trying to prevent you from driving him 10 yards downfield. That's it. It works that way, but it draws the ire of fans more than any one position, maybe besides quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I mean, 2 years ago, once we got into the flow of the season, I did expect anytime that we took the field, we would be able to run the ball. I came into a game like against Miami. Well, I mean, we both call for that blowout. The 40 burger is how I framed it. You framed it as whatever, ass kicking Central, whatever.
I said it was going to be ass kicking Central before, well in advance. That was we were calling our shots.
Well, because we watched the games. We watched Miami's previous games. You're like, well, boy, if that deficiency doesn't fit perfectly into our strength, my goodness. And then they were stopped trying, which was cool as well. And I know that we had some difficulty during that 3-game stretch where we found a way to lose all 3 of those games, and that was tough. But week to week, I expected us to show up, be able to run the football. And that it had been a minute since you felt that way. Now, the years before, the early time for Mike, you could say, I expect us to hit a home run at some point, but we're going to strike out a bunch in the running game. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, you felt like, man, we're going to be able to run the ball. And then it's just about what do we do off of that. And I think that's what this season comes down to, is because we don't have Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, can we show up most weeks and fully expect that we're going to run the ball on first and second down with consistency? Doesn't have to be 10, doesn't have to be 8, but it's going to be second and 6. More often, that's going to be second and 9. If the answer is yes, then this is going to get real fun real fast, because then Mike has all of his counter punches.
Absolutely, he does. And that's why I said, when I said that I thought the offense would be better, because I'm counting on them being able to do that. And if they can do that, everything else will fall into place. And it will be a lot of fun, because you brought in a huge arm and you brought in a lot of speed. And so you have guys that can absolutely stretch the field, and then you can get into, so many of the things that we love about Mike when he gets on those rolls, and you can tell he's got a defense on their heels. No coach, I don't care how good an offensive mind they are. Same goes for defensive minds. If you're a defensive-minded coach and you can't stop the run, this game is over. If you can't stop the run, you're dead. You have to overcommit, and now I'm going to beat you over the top, and this is going to be a long day. You're just done. And so we know just how important it is to be able to, even though it's a more efficient game these days to throw it, you have to be able to run it. You have to show that you can run it. You don't have to be elite, but you have to be far more efficient than we were. And yeah, if he has that, I 100% agree he's going to be able to once again kind of reignite the offense, for lack of a better term. Look, I would tell you that had they not gotten beat up last year, they probably would have been much, much better on offense, and we wouldn't be really talking about this. They'd still have their issues. They would have run into a problem at some point against the better teams, because you couldn't just line up and throw it all day long, and they were having trouble running the ball. But go back to the early season performances, that LSU game. Now, we found out LSU's defense was ass, but man, this offense really looked like it was going to be able to do both. You kind of thought you were going to be able to do both.
Yeah, and you got banged up at some key positions, and that took away some of the facets. But then there was also, it seemed to be a lack of confidence at some point with a lack of consistency. I don't know. There was just a lot of noise in the machine, and you could feel it. It's hard to describe, because they were outperforming 2022's offense, points per game, yardage, things like that. Not explosive runs, but explosive plays. In a lot of metrics, as we were approaching the end of October, they were doing what we were hoping, which was approaching 40 points a game. And they could. That's how good they were, is that they are operating in fourth gear, not fifth, and they would still hit those targets. It's just going to be different this year, and that might be just fine. We might be smiling at the end of this and saying, man, it doesn't matter what your preseason grouping of players looks like. Mike's got a plan. He's just always got a plan.
I'm just laughing. I'm looking at the chat, and we're getting late in the show, and it's almost time to go, get me out of this blank league, Jeff. I'm trying to get us out of this league, guys, but I really don't have the say. I would have already gotten us out of this league if I did. I mean, we'd be long gone, but I don't have it. And so we're going to have to wait till that number becomes doable.
Hey, you found a swear word that gets past the old censors, Kelly. Very nice, very nice.
Nicely done. Yeah,
it's not your fault. We'll bleep that one out moving forward.
Really quick, because I don't want to say goodbye without reminding everybody about my friends at Tried and True Consulting, looking for businesses that are actively looking to utilize their wall space. That's right. You own a business, you've got wall space, maybe you have an existing television, you want to generate revenue. Don and Joe ready to help you out, along with other local businesses. The Tried and True ad program will give you the much-needed boost and or expose your company and services to more people like never before. Whether you have the space or need to sell more business, the program is ideal for you. And you can see there the QR code, 10% of the net revenue goes to the Battles Inn. Scan it today. Ideal businesses for the ad-free ad board include dental or medical offices, waiting rooms, auto repair, dealerships as well, community bank waiting areas, all that stuff where people are sitting, waiting, passing through your doors on the regular, looking up at all the various businesses on those ad boards. Right now, locations can take advantage of a free ad board. Can't beat that. Give them a call today. I would tell you 352-729-3873. There you go. Jeff Cameron Show. Voice made it. Made it.
You did it.
I didn't think I'd make it.
I heard you're hosting the live chat with Michael tonight at 7:00. Is that accurate?
Gonna miss that. I won't miss it. I'm gonna miss hosting it. Somebody else stepping in. That's why we have a massive staff of experts.
Yeah,
They're able to come in there and make the plays.
Michael and Aslan tonight going through it, and I believe there's going to be some talk about the many kids who are making decisions over the next week or two. Those will be a lot of the questions, that's for sure. We've got a defensive back. I know that that doesn't headline things for you, but choosing between us and Clemson, and that's coming up on Sunday. So there you go.
No, that's all well and good, buddy, and hopefully we get them. I'm not saying that I turn my back on elite players that are skill position players, but right now I am just steady locking in on the line of scrimmage, and that is it's a group that is already going to be pretty good defensively on that side. So really, I'm kind of. I mean, look, I love that we got a defensive lineman commit, the Kevin Wynn kid, but I'm really looking on the offensive line. I would love. Can you imagine if we signed those three guys that I keep alluding to?
It would be great. Haywood, maybe not, but I think we'd have to outbid Alabama for his services. As great as he is, maybe it's worth it. But yeah, Solomon Thomas and Peyton Joseph and the third kid's name is escaping me. The reason it is because Josh Petty. Thank you. Yeah. And that's one. Oh man, that's the kid I really want. The reason it was escaping me is because Zay Thomas, the defensive back who's deciding on Sunday, is a member of the Seminole tribe of Florida. So, and he's a 4-star defensive back. Would be really, right? Yes. Yeah. Would be phenomenal if he was representing the university.
It'd be huge. It'd be spectacular. I did not realize that. That is cool news. And I've said before that if this tradition is to stay alive as we'd like it to, ideally you're gonna find more situations where that's the case. I don't mean players per se, but think about Chief Osceola, things like that. It would be ideal. That's kind of the way you'd have to go. And knock on wood that happens. We cement the deal. I'd be happy with that. No baseball for the Buccos tonight. Do you have baseball tonight?
We do not. No, we're hosting the Red Hot Astros this weekend.
Pirates Braves coming up. Bravo fans, are you shaking in your boots? Last time you faced the mighty Buccos, it didn't go well.
We had a rain delay of an hour and a half last night. Bad weather in the area, but we, after the rain delay, scored more runs. Scored 12 on the night. Very nice evening.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Be good, everybody. We will talk to you on Monday. I'm taking tomorrow off from the rest of this voice and get a good night's sleep. Hopefully everything will be okay. Good job, Tom. Till next time. Peace.